So this is going to be how I paint American War of Independence Hessians. I start off with the skin tone, and I just go over the face and hands. After that, I start painting the coat Prussian blue, which is ironic because these soldiers were purchased from the Germanic states, such as Prussia, but a majority of Hessians actually came from the Germanic state of Hesse-Kassel. So that's where they got the name Hessian. After that, I started doing the whites for the trousers and the undercoat. The white is a little thin, so I had to go over in a couple of different coats, but that's typical with lighter colors, such as we'll see when we start doing the facings and have to deal with the orange. So here I'm going to start doing the facings. I started with this vermilion color, but it was a little too bright of an orange, so I mixed a little bit of flat red with it to get it to the desired color that I liked. On camera, it looks more red, but I'm happy with how it looks in person. This stage can be a little time consuming, especially when it comes down to the folds on the bottom of the jacket, such as what I'm painting right now. The paint was a little bit darker because of the black undercoat. That's why I usually prime it with black and then hit it with white from the top just to add highlights and raise those edges. I start painting the top of the tricorn hat, as well as the boots, the sword scabbard, So after this is all finished, I move on to detailing. So here I'm mixing a light gray that I'm going to put over the powdered wig. I then paint the pistol, which here I'm using oak brown for. And now I'm going to paint the sash. Here I'm using just flat red. It looks a little pink, but that's just, once again, the camera. So now I'm starting the highlights. So I'm mixing a little bit of that Prussian blue with some off-white, and I'm going over the raised edges just to make it look like there's light reflecting off of them. And this is also going to contrast the shadows that are going to be applied later in the wash. So here I'm going to start doing the sword. I'm doing this with a metal. When using metallics, I try to use a separate brush and a separate glass of water to clean, because metallics have glitter in their pigment, which over time will just cause the brushes to fray. And with working with small details like that, frayed edges will lead to rogue marks on parts of the miniature. Go over the top of the hat with gold, and I also work on the buttons as well, which are definitely optional. The buttons are very tiny as well as the eyes, but I like that extra level of detail in my miniatures. And right here I'm going in to get the brass end cap at the tip of the sword scabbard. A couple of these buttons missed and hit on spots that were supposed to be blue, but that's okay. You can always go in later and touch up spots that you miss, such as I'm doing right here. This is mostly just a touch-up phase. And here's the wash. So I'm using a Agrax Earthshade doled down with a little bit of water. So this coats the miniature as well as seeps into the crevices and adds shadow. Now I'm starting the basing process. So here I'm just using once again another older brush to just move that paint around to make it nice and even. Now I'm trying to find my earth. So here I sprinkle a little bit of that on, and since the Hessians were famous during George Washington's crossing of the Delaware in the middle of winter on Christmas Day, I added a little bit of snow to the ground, and here I'm using frozen tufts. And I'm just going to place those around just to give it a little bit more dimension. And with that last tuft, I call this miniature completed.